Well, hello, humans. Oh, wait, that's wrong. Hey, humans. That's right. How's it going? Susan Ruth here, and this is, most obviously, Hey Human Podcast. And I'm very excited because in this episode, I get to talk with my dear friend, Chris Gehringer, who is, to say exceptional, is to not even give him enough credit. Chris is an extra exceptional, is that a thing? I think it is now, studio mastering engineer, the ears of a audio god. He has mastered albums for Rihanna, Lady Gaga, Chris Cornell, big jazz records, who I can't think of any by name right now because my brain is filled with names like Naughty by Nature, Madonna. Did I say Rihanna? If I said it already, it's worth saying twice. Basically, he is creme de la mastering engineer. He also has something called synesthesia. It's hard to say. Go on, say it with me. Synesthesia. And what that is, to put it in the most basic of terms, it's when your brain is doing one thing sensory-wise, like, for example, smelling something, and at the same time, a secondary sensory trigger happens in the brain. And let's say you smell bread, but you see the color blue. Well, he's got it for music. So when he hears music, he sees colors. So cool. I wish I had that. It's very interesting. So he gets to hear the world of music and see it all in color. So cool. Anyway, we chatted about projects he's worked on. We talked about his process. We talked about life, where to get a good burger. And he's in New York at Sterling Sound. He's awesome. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you so much for listening. I really, really appreciate it. Go to iTunes and subscribe. If you like what you hear, write a review. I suppose if you don't like what you hear, you could write a review as well, but I prefer if you write a review when you like it. Also, check out heyhumanpodcast.com. I put tons of links on there that are based on the conversations I have with my guests. And, excuse me, I also just pick random humans to write little blurbs about on there as well. So it's kind of a cool little page of history on the heyhumanpodcast.com website. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. Well, this is exciting. I am talking with my friend Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm well.
Chris is kind of a big deal. Chris is a mastering genius over at Sterling Sound with credits Selena Gomez, Rihanna, the 1975, Nick Jonas, the Ab Fab movie soundtrack. I didn't know you did that. That was a fun movie.
Yeah.
Let's see, Madonna, Jason Derulo, Gwen Stefani, Ellie and Ant Farm, CeeLo Green, Kelly Clarkson. I mean, the list really, truly goes on and on and on and on. It's insane how many you have mastered. Because you are a master. That's just the way it works.
I don't even know what to say after all that.
It's exciting. It's wonderful. And you're a good guy, too. So there's
I try and be.
Yeah.
I try and be that. That's most important.
You're a sweetie pie. So how the heck are you? How's New York?
New York is good. It finally cooled off. It was like, in the 90s for like 3 weeks. It was bad. And humid and, sticky New York summer.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of cooled off now, so it's nice.
That's good. It's still, yesterday was a great day yesterday. It wasn't very humid here in Nashville. And then today is like wearing a warm, wet blanket everywhere. Yeah, it was pretty gross.
Yeah, that's bad.
Gross. So let's talk music.
All right.
How did you get into becoming a mastering guy? Where did you start? Did you just jump out of college doing it? Did you go to college for that? What's your story?
My story is that I wanted to go to college for film, and then as soon as I went to college, I realized that you don't really do a lot of stuff in college right away, and I just wanted to make movies, and I kind of dropped out, and I was like, I want to mess around with music. So my friends were in a band. I started doing live sound for a bunch of different bands, and then I was like, all right, I kind of like this. Maybe I'll go to like a music school or like a music engineering school. And there was a school called, it's still around, the Institute of Audio Research, which I went in 1982 to further my knowledge of, sound and recording stuff. I went there for 1 year. It was a 1 year's program, and then I started working at a studio called Green Street Recording, which, God, I think the first session I worked on was like Run DMC.
No way.
Their songs, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I went right from that into working on the Shannon song, Give Me Tonight, Give Me the Night, Give Me Tonight it was, which was like a huge song too. And then it was, a mixed bag of like, like the Patti Smith's band would record stuff there under their own project, and all this famous rap stuff that I would work on, and it was cool. But I kind of burnt out really fast because I worked like 70 plus hours a week for like $125, and I was living at home, and my parents were giving me a lot about it, like, what are you doing? Like, there's no money, you're never home, you don't come home for days, and I was kind of like, all right, I'll go back to school for engineering, but like mechanical engineering. And while I was in school, I was working at a liquor store, and I had the Sunday shift, which was all day Sunday by myself. So I'd read the New York Times, and in the New York Times was an ad for a mastering studio. So I was like, all right, let me try this place. It's like 9 to 5. It's really doing like everything there, like shipping, working in the studio, assisting, all this stuff, and it was close to my house. So I was like, all right, let me try mastering. Let me see what that's about. And I started working there, and I fell in love with what we were doing. We were cutting lacquer masters and vinyl, EQing the stuff, making it all sound better. And there were long days, but it wasn't like recording where you just disappeared. You'd go in the daytime and come out in the daytime maybe 2 days later.
It's like Vegas.
The recording studio back in the day was much like Vegas. You kind of lose track of time and what you're doing. So I started I worked at True Tone for like a year and a half. I wanted to kind of move up, so I started applying at studios in the city, and I worked for a studio called Frankfurt Wayne Mastering, where I worked there for 3.5 years, and I met Tom Coyne, who's one of my partners at Sterling right now, and I worked for Herb Powers, who's a famous master engineer. He basically did like all the 80s and early 90s R&B, hip-hop, and all that stuff. And that's where I kind of got my name in hip-hop back in the day from, being his assistant and doing that stuff. Then after Frankfurt Wayne, I went to the Hit Factory. I did 11 years there, Hit Factory Mastering. Famous studio, famous everything there. That was like...
Talk about cutting your teeth on the big guns. Whoa.
Yeah, so Michael Jackson would be there all the time, and all these famous stars would just be walking around. It was kind of surreal, as a music fan to see that, and then to have them working in rooms next to you, and then all of a sudden I started working with people like that. Not Michael Jackson, but Madonna and everybody else. Then I went to Sterling Sound because they were looking to expand and build their new facility, which we're still in, and I've been at Sterling Sound for 16 years right now.
Wow, it's amazing.
Yeah.
What are a couple highlight records that you just completely fell in love with while you were working on them?
The Wu-Tang Clan 36 Chambers was like really cool because we were editing it all together and kind of like putting it together and, doing like, kung fu, dialogue scenes over the music or in between. It was pretty cool doing that stuff. I did a Blackstreet album. I worked with Teddy Riley back in the 90s. I worked with L.A. Reid way back when, he would come to sessions and, listen to the EQ and do stuff. I did the Boomerang soundtrack. Boys to Men End of the Road was on that. That was my first big, mega record. It knocked out Hound Dog, Elvis Presley's Hound Dog, for the longest spot at number 1.
Wow, that's humongous.
Sadly, though, right after Boys to Men End of the Road broke the record, this other song came out and broke that record. It was Whitney Houston's song, Greatest Love of All.
Yeah.
Yes. From the Bodyguard soundtrack. So that became like the biggest song ever. but it was nice to have.
Wait, I Will Always Love You or Greatest Love of All?
Oh, I Will Always Love You.
Yeah, I was gonna say Bodyguard. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Bodyguard. So
did you do that one?
No, I didn't do that. So
okay.
my record was like 52 weeks at number one, and then knocked out by the biggest record ever. So it's not bad.
52 weeks at number one.
Yeah, Boys to Men, End of the Road. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. All right, let's hear a good story about being in the hallways. You must have seen a lot of stuff.
Oh my God! One time I walked into the lobby. I was leaving the studio, and it was late at night. And I walked through the lobby of the Hit Factory, and Michael Jackson, Prince, Madonna, and Dennis Rodman were kind of like leaving the studio, and they were kind of all like talking to each other on the way out. And I was like, "Oh my God! Like, that's incredible. That's like everybody big right then and there in one shot."
Because Madonna dated Dennis Rodman for a minute, right?
Yeah, that's when she was dating him.
Yeah. Man. So. That's like a surreal dream or something. That's a dream you have when you've eaten a whole lot of pizza before bed.
Yeah.
I was in a hallway with Michael Jackson, Madonna, Dennis Rodman, and Prince. It's really weird. So crazy. Yeah. So when I met you a few years back, and you mastered my record, which is awesome. Am I allowed to say that? Because I'm not hugely famous. You did a great job. I love it.
Thank you. I love that record.
Thank you. Anyway, you had said, I asked, you invited me into the studio at Sterling Sound, and I gotta say, it was like walking into a spaceship. It was the craziest thing for y'all listening. It was. So I walked in, and everything was some sort of wood. You probably know what kind of wood it was, but it was like the whole room was floating in the middle of space. It really felt like a spaceship. Talk about the room a little bit, because...
So our rooms are designed by Fran Manzella, who is just a genius as far as I'm concerned, as far as designing rooms that sound good. And the room is... Nothing in the room is parallel. The room is completely floating. Suspended on springs, a cement slab on top of springs. The only place it really touches is the springs and the door jamb. The air conditioning vents are designed not to make noise. The return is designed to not make noise. Nothing in the room has a motor anymore. There's no moving parts in the room, so it's dead silence. I mean, you can really just hear the speakers, And
those speakers were a thing of beauty, by the way.
Yes, my B&W 801 Nautilus. I have to shill for them because I rep them now. They're the best. I've had them for 16 years in that room, and I had them at the Hit Factory. The old B&W 801 Nautiluses before that. They're just to me they sing. So people always ask me, "What's a good speaker? Should I get your speakers?" I'm like, my speakers work in my room, and they work for me. They're my they're kind of like my canvas, I guess, or whatever. You work with whatever works for you, whatever equipment works for you, whatever speakers work for you, and just the whole room, the design of the room, the speakers, the way they, work for me. It's a perfect package, you know. But I mean, there are a lot of people who notice that it sounds really good. So.
It sounds so good. It's funny because when I went to master, when it was time to master, all I ever wanted was everything. People were saying to me like, "Well, I don't understand mastering. I don't get it. I mean, it's all mixed and everything. Why does it need to be mastered?" And when I was out earlier and I was telling some friends that I was going to be talking to you tonight, and the same thing came up. They're like, "Well, I don't understand exactly what mastering does." And I tried to explain to them. I said, "Let's say you have the best ice cream sundae you've ever had in your life. It's so good. And then you think of your favorite caramelly topping or chocolatey topping, and you pour that over it, and it just makes it that much better." But that's a terrible explanation. So you had to give a real explanation of what mastering is exactly.
The real explanation of it is what we really do is we bring it to industry standard levels, and so everything kind of plays the same. Some people want their stuff louder, some people don't care. That's a whole different subject. But what we try and do is bring it to an industry standard level and EQ it so that it sounds as best as it can sound on, most systems. And that comes through time and, error, and trying to make your room sound good and make your room work on all systems. My room over the years, I get different equipment, I do things, but the basic sound that comes out of my room is what I found to be an amazing sound. Like when I can work on something, I can make it sound good on all systems. So that's kind of like the idea of what we do. But it's really just like comes down to like personal taste. Like there are some records I do a lot of processing to, and there are some I do very little processing to. And that is, my third person take on what people have given me and just trying to make the record better, not trying to like do a lot to it if it sounds great. You respect what sounds great and you try and fix what needs a little help. I'm not saying anybody brings me stuff that's bad, but sometimes I'll do very little processing and the people will like have the biggest reaction to it because it's just what they needed. It's just that touch that they needed, that caramel sauce. And then some people, think their mix is great and I'll do all this stuff to it and they'll only notice that it's better. They don't always say like, oh my God, you did this, but it's just a way of like, finessing something. Everybody kind of hears different, everybody kind of sees different, everybody has a different take on, what they're listening to when they're listening to a record. So I try and put like some kind of like color into it, some kind of dimension, just something to make it a little better and make it really like affect you. I want people to like have a reaction to sound and not just the song. I want them to feel the entire thing. When some people write songs, there are people who write lyrics and they put a melody to it and it's a song. And then there's some people, maybe like a band like Radiohead or, Pink Floyd back in the day that would make a record that was like mind-blowing kind of stuff. So I work on all different projects like that. And that's the thing is when you do a song, you respect the song. When you do, a mind-blowing Dark Side of the Moon album, you go into that mode. You have to try and do that. I try and make everybody sound special though. I try and like whatever engineer they worked with or whatever producer they worked with, I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of big ones now so that I know what they're looking for and I kind of go into that mode. And then, there's days where I just kind of like turn on the music and kind of say, all right, this is what I'm doing today,
Is there, with all the different modes of music now, we have the MP3, we have the vinyl, we have the CD sometimes, and everything is it's so different to hear the way each one of those different devices plays. Do you have to master it especially for each individual play system, or is it you master it XYZ, it's done, and then it gets played on all these different ways?
For the most part, it is that I go for the highest sounding, format. So there are some systems now that play waves. You can stream waves on some sites, and that's 1644 or 2444, or the higher ones. That's amazing. Like those are people who have good systems and people who get sound and people who will listen to a record and like get goosebumps and whatever. Those are my people. Those are the people that like I'm that nerd that would listen to a record in the dark and just like vibe on it and go into that place. And then there are people who just like, listening to the radio while they're at the gym or whatever in their car, and they like the song, and I'm trying to make the bass pump and do all that stuff too. That's another format is there's earbuds, there's headphones now, high-end headphones, and then there's cars. There are people who have amazing systems now at home due to surround sound. So the question, to answer the question is that I kind of go for the high-end wave sound. The MP3 is kind of a trickle-down thing, even though mastering for iTunes has some software where it's not as loud as the MP3. They try and squeeze a few more dynamics into it. It sounds a little better, I think. Then there's vinyl, which for the most part is a trickle-down of just like lowering the level and letting the dynamics happen a little more. That's kind of it, but I've actually been doing a few records where for the vinyl, I just did 21 Pilots Live, it's the same Blurry Face tour, but there's a few extra songs. There's a couple different things on it. But we actually mastered it at a very low level because it was just for vinyl. So there's not really any kind of limiting on it. It's just enough to like make the record kind of come together and sound full. But for the most part, it's really just like a true back in the day cut it for vinyl record.
That was going to be my next question is, are there artists out there that they only put out on vinyl or particular?
No, but I mean, the hip thing is to put it out, a special vinyl song or a 10-inch record or, whatever. Cassettes are actually coming back now.
What?
Yeah, and that I don't even know. I'm not even going to comment.
For real? Trust me, I have a whole box full of cassettes waiting for that to happen. For when I walk into a store and ask for a cassette player and the guy doesn't look at me like I'm an insane person. Like, what's a cassette player?
Yeah, so that's actually coming back. The coolness of a cassette. You can't really control the way a cassette tracks or anything like that. There were a couple really good, Nakamichi decks back in the day, and Denon decks that were really cool and high end. But for the most part, a cassette is like a cassette. I mean, I still have my Walkman.
Oh no way!
I didn't have a Sony. I had a Panasonic, a first generation Panasonic, but I still have it because it was like floating in space when I first got it, because you were always, you either had to listen to music at home or in your car, or have a boom box, but that was kind of like you couldn't play it. I couldn't play my trippy, Brian Eno stuff on the bus on a boom box. So I'd have my, cassettes and, then I could make mixtapes and,
Oh man, mixed-C relationships will be saved if cassettes come back, because all those mixtapes.
I kind of once a year I make Beth a mixtape of stuff that I work on and stuff that I kind of feel is like a message to her,
nice.
Lyric here musically. So yeah, once a year Beth gets a mixtape.
That's awesome. I still have, my first boyfriend gave me mixtapes and I still have them.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
They're good.
I love it. Okay, so I didn't get a chance to ask you back in your studio. So when I walked in, again, it was as if you were floating in space. There was just no sound in there. It was the trippiest thing. And you said that the floor, and I think you said the ceiling, they were all floating. Is that right?
No, the room is a box that floats on springs. You come through the door into the lounge and you come into the studio and then you're floating. If I jumped, that's when you really felt it float, but it's not like, whatever. But it also has to do with the sound is so dead in there that it really does give you the impression that you're in some kind of chamber. You're not, there's really no sound in there. The room might move a little if you jump, but it's definitely like a chamber just to listen. When the speakers come on, all of a sudden the walls kind of disappear, things start happening.
Yeah, it was incredible to hear. It was incredible to hear. You played me a couple things, and I was of other artists and blown away by it. It was incredible to hear music in that room. Absolutely. Yeah. And you also told me when I was there that you have synesthesia, which is fascinating. So, can't say it. Synesthesia means that you, for example, some people, numbers have colors, or music has a color, or for you, it's music has colors, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like they're in front of me. It's not like I see the band. It's like I see where the music's coming from. I see the space, and I kind of that's like when I work in some indifference or mid-side, so I kind of do a little dimensional stuff. I like to move, I like to shift the phase, enough that it kind of all of a sudden it's kind of it's just weird.
What do you mean? I don't speak your language. What does that mean?
It's just, you kind of move the stereo and mono image enough that it kind of just the whole sound kind of gets wider and deeper. It's something like experience. Okay. It's kind of like that first hit of pot, or when that shot you just drank hits. You're kind of you just kind of go into another plane. You're kind of it's just hard to explain until you sit in my chair and you turn the knobs, and then you're like, okay, now I get it.
You had said to me that that for you sometimes it's not even about turning the knobs to make the music go where it goes, that you see the colors, and that once the colors go where they're supposed to go, you know you've done it.
Yeah, you kind of just like, the more I listen, the more I kind of get into it, and then it kind of all starts turning into this image or this thing. It's really a thing. It's not even like just an image. It's a whole whatever. And then like, you know, a lot of times if it's a really good record, I kind of feel it more, and I just start like, I can't explain it. Like when I think about what I do, it's really nothing. You know, it's like, oh, I'm turning a knob, I'm doing this, and whatever. I'm not, you know, I didn't invent anything. I'm not solving anything. I'm not changing it so much that, you know, people are like, holy shit. Like, you know, I mean, sometimes you do, but it's just this thing where you kind of get in the zone and kind of like, all right, I want this record to be felt. I want it to be seen. I want it to be, you know, I want it bigger than, you know, I want people to have a reaction to it. You feel like I'm kind of transferring that energy.
Well, I would argue that you do a great deal. I would argue that. And you've made a record bigger than Elvis. You said so yourself. There's no bigger than that, right? Bigger than Elvis is an actual phrase to mean something really big.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this now for, gosh, that would make it over 20 years plus? 30 years.
Yeah.
You started when you were 10, so...
I'm old.
So if you were to start all over again, would you do the same thing? I think you seem to have a great passion for what you do.
I do. That's such a like... I mean, that's when you get to a certain point, you're like, if I could do it all over again, you know? I mean, I think I would do it. I think I could do it better. I think I could have, you know... I don't know. It took a while to get to where I am. Like now that I'm at Sterling and I'm really in control of my work and my destiny and like everything, it just makes it easier to be better or to try and be better or to keep working harder and not lose the passion for what I do.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the thing is like there are days, you know, you're sitting around waiting. You're waiting for a track that somebody promised you was going to be in at 3 p.m. and it's 11:30 and you know, I mean, it's not like I'm going to go home and do like all this amazing stuff, but you know, like it's just like that part has always sucked in the studio. But at the same time, it's like I love doing what I do. I love like, you know, my favorite reaction from working with someone is like, you know, 2 days later when they're like, oh my God, like it's just like it's, you know, coming out of my speakers so differently and it has so much more, you know, depth and whatever. I love when I hear that, you know, like when you're in my room, it's kind of hard because you either get the system or you don't, or people get kind of blown away and afraid, like, oh my God, my music is like alive now. And, you know, they have this expectation of what they thought. And now it's in a different place or it's better, or there's, you know, they're just not ready to let go. There's so many things that happen there. And, you know, then when they're finally like, okay, I let go and it's great and I love what you did and you know, you did exactly what I wanted. Like, you know, they went for their jog or they drove or, you know, they got drunk and they put on headphones and they were like, yeah, that's, you know, that's what I wanted.
I listened when you sent mine back to me. I listened and I just sobbed the whole time. In the best possible way.
Yours was great because the mixes were good and I kind of felt like what you were going for right away. And I'm like, you know, honestly, it's not about, like, people always say, like, you know, what's your wheelhouse? Like, what is your thing? My career kind of was built around hip-hop, R&B, only because of the people that I was working with back then. They were the people who gave me the opportunity. The other engineers who I was working under, that's what they were doing. And I kind of, you know, I loved punk rock. I loved, like, you know, blues rock and stuff like that. And, you know, just regular rock and roll. That was my dream to do that kind of stuff for alternative rock. And I just never met those people. I didn't work at the place at the right time, but I embraced what came at me. And then I just kind of went with it because it was sound and it was making that stuff sound better. You know, like I was trying to make hip hop have like an audiophile sound. Like, you know, you play it on a system and people would be like, oh my God, like that's so much bigger than anything else. You know, like when bass was kind of blowing up, I was kind of like, all right, let me be the guy who adds, you know, makes the bass huge and makes it, you know, like explode on systems.
Yeah.
You know, just what I wanted to do is try and, you know, make it better. You know, and when I would go to clubs and hear it, I would be like, this is how it sounds in the club. That's how I want the record to sound. on any system.
Well, I think it's impressive too that you master in so many genres. You're not a one genre guy. It's not like you can only hear it in a particular. I mean, you can take something that's super soft and chill, or something huge.
Yeah, I mean, I've done, Grammy-nominated jazz records, and, where I won Best World Music Album 2 years in a row, Angelique Kidjo this year and last year. And, then people are always like, oh, you're the pop guy now, or you're the rap guy, or you're whatever. And it's like, I kind of do some other stuff, Like, it's just like the people that know me and want to work with me know what I'll do to their record or whatever. It's not about, the genre. I did 2 country records this year. I did Little Big Town album I just did. And I just did, oh my God, I got to think. I did a song for, they were at the Ventura County Fair last year. I can't think of. I'll come up with a name or I'll email you.
Okay.
It was a country record or whatever. So it's just like, but it was the mixer who got me those. One was Pharrell who got me the record for Little Big Town, and then the mixer got me the record for the other band.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have to take extra special care of your ears? Like, do you go out clubbing and stuff, or do you have to?
I don't go clubbing anymore, but I do go to shows. I saw 21 Pilots last week. I saw Radiohead a couple weeks ago.
I still need to go see them eventually in my lifetime. I've always wanted to go see Radiohead.
It was bucket list. It was absolutely bucket.
I imagine.
21 Pilots was amazing. I've worked with them from like their, second album to, or like whatever, the end of the first album I did some singles, and the second album I did some singles. I did the Blurry Face album, and I just did the 2 live records for vinyl and the show.
Yeah, I like the post you did on Instagram about how you've been following them since they were babes in the woods. It's so cool.
Yeah, and it was so amazing to like see them play the Garden,
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I've seen the Who at the Garden, I've seen the Moody Blues, I've like all these giant bands back in the day, and then to see them there, it was like, all right, So I've seen Rihanna at the Garden, and I worked with her from the beginning, but it was kind of different because Rihanna went from basically nowhere to like, the Garden, where these guys kind of, played some basements and things like that.
Sure. So what do you do to protect your hearing?
I have earplugs. I have like a bunch of different earplugs, depending how loud it is, like I change them up. If it's a smaller place, it's not that loud, I have some light ones. If it's
You're talking about specially made, I assume.
No, I don't have the specially made, but I have some really good ones that I've just acquired over time. And I always keep them in my bag. If I'm going out, I always have like 2 in my pocket. And actually, Beth now she wears earplugs too.
Yeah, I wear earplugs all the time when I go out, and a lot of times I'll wear them just in a loud talking place. It's amazing how painful your ears feel after a night of being in a place where there's just really loud talking.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. There's times where it's just like, we'll be somewhere and I'll be like, it's just too loud. I can't even like, I just don't like it that loud. I don't listen loud. I don't work loud because your ear's a muscle. You don't want to like tire it out. So, and the more even I listen to, the more I can balance the record and really get like an overall sound for an album or an EP or whatever. It's just when I'm working at a nice level, I kind of hear more because I'm maybe leaning in to hear a little more. I'm leaning in to, feel it,
Yeah. So, if you can recall, what was one of the more difficult albums you have mastered, and why is that?
There's a bunch of them. I mean, there's a lot of times like I'll do, a competition mastering with other engineers, and, it's just kind of like you second guess yourself a lot. Like when someone comes to you and works, you're kind of like, all right, they want me, I'm going to do this. When you're like competing, sometimes I feel like, all right, I'm just like,
What does that mean exactly?
You're trying to, like, there's other engineers working on the same project. I've done it with Kanye West. I've done it with a bunch of other projects. But, you are trying to put your best work forward, but you realize, too, in some situations, the loudest record is going to win. So it's kind of like, do I make this record sound really good the way I normally would for a client who is just going to say, master this? Or do I make it a little louder because I know they're just going to listen to the loudest version and go, okay, that's the best.
So what you're saying is, like, say artist Joe Smith is a big artist, and so a bunch of different mastering people take us one song and everybody masters it, and then they pick who the winner is? Is that what you mean?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Or it's master an album because we're really late on the project.
Does that happen a lot?
It doesn't happen a lot, but it probably happens once or twice a year.
Okay.
I just feel like it's not a competition. So, like, if I do my thing, that's what I really do. And honestly, like, a lot of times lately with one song, I kind of just do my thing. Like, I'm just not, like, if they make it louder and that's what they want, they weren't going to use me anyway, you know?
Yeah.
But it's just, again, it's a competition, so you're like, oh, it's a competition.
Yeah. When you go home at night or when you're just sort of chilling, do you listen to music or do you stay away? Give your ears a rest?
I give my ears a rest, honestly. I watch TV. I go to the gym and I may listen to music. Normally at the gym I kind of just, like, the wires kind of like feel like they're in my way when I'm doing stuff. But lately I've just been really, like, vibing on these albums and I just listen to them, the new Radiohead album, Moonshaped Pool is just...
Did you do it? Did you master it?
No, I didn't do it, but I'm just such a fanboy.
I am a fan, yeah. Okay.
So, like, I just listened to that at the gym. I did the new, oh my God, hold on, I'll tell you what it is. I just have this song America in my head. Young the Giant. New Young the Giant album is amazing, and the new Fantagram album is amazing.
I know. Nick is a good friend of mine in Fantagram.
I mastered both of those.
Oh, yeah. You did? Oh, good. Awesome.
They are both two amazing albums.
I saw Fantagram when they came to Nashville, and Nick got us ticket. A couple friends and I went, and it was great to catch up with him, but he used to be in my band. When I first started back in Seattle, Nick played guitar for me. So crazy.
Really?
Yeah, those were the days. But yeah, he's doing so well now. It's great. And seeing them live was incredible.
Yeah, when they come around, I'm totally going to go see them.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. It's very, very good.
Yeah.
So who's oh, sorry, go ahead.
I say Young the Giant's playing, like, in 2 weeks. I'm definitely going to go see them.
Yeah.
Like, definitely.
Do you get privy to people that nobody knows about yet, and you're sort of like, oh my God, this is going to blow up, and you just know? Can you tell? I imagine you get some unknowns. You got me.
No, totally. I mean, every now and then, like, you'll hear a record and you'll be like, oh my God, this is going to be huge. But there are a lot of records I work on, too, that I really have, like, high expectations of, and people don't get it. And 40% of my work is, like, international, like Japanese, Chinese, Latin music, from all over the globe. And I won the album of the year for China last year, or this year. And it's kind of like, or last year I won it. And it was like, it was a cool record. I don't understand anything they're saying because they're speaking in Chinese or singing Chinese, but I could vibe on the record and I knew it. I just didn't think it was going to win. Like, you don't know.
Yeah.
For every hit record I do, I probably do 10 records that I'll never hear again because of the country or just, they're independent. They're just putting it out themselves.
How many Grammys has Sterling Sound racked up between you guys?
Oh my God, a lot. Right now, Tom Coyne has 2 Album of the Years and 1 Record of the Year. Ted Jensen has the first Norah Jones album for Album of the Year. And then we've all been nominated for everything too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of records. We have a pretty big team.
Yeah. How many people are there now?
In the total company, I think we have 30 right now. Yeah, we have a lot of staff and a lot of support, a lot of assistants. But it's, Ted Jensen, myself, Greg Calby, Tom Coyne, Joe Laporta, and Ryan Smith are senior engineers.
Do you ever call each other in and say, like, hey, man, do you hear something there? Or are y'all pretty much your own units as far as
No, we do our own thing. We may mention to each other, like, oh, my God, I just did this album. It's awesome. Or if like Ted's working with somebody, I'm like, oh, my God, I want to hear that. Or, like, is it good? Or, but for the most part, we don't really, like, it's an industry where you got to like protect everybody. So
yeah,
we may not listen to it, or like if it's somebody that I totally love, I'll be like, oh, I just want to hear one song. But you have to respect the artist and the labels and all that stuff.
So the artists you've worked with, who are some of your fans? Totally, like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm in the room with this person.
Oh, Madonna. We were sitting next to each other at the console and just like talking away. And got Chris Cornell from Soundgarden. I worked with him for a couple days.
I know his whole family too. Because Seattle, yeah.
I love them.
Karen is his mama.
I worked with The Lonely Island one time for 2 or 3 days, and it was just like so funny because those guys are so funny.
They're so funny.
And it was just great hanging out with them, and like sitting in the middle of that, listening. The Cash Money Millionaires. Like it was like you just sat there waiting for them to say stuff because you knew they were like straight up from the streets of New Orleans. They weren't like label execs or they just made stuff the way they thought to make it.
Yeah.
And they made huge records. God, what else?
With Madonna, she seems like a cool hang.
She's super cool.
Yeah.
She's super cool. I met Demi Moore once. I did a record for her daughter, and she came by to thank me, and it was just like really weird that she actually took the time to come into the studio, meet me, and thank me because it was like a free thing, and I was just like, yeah, I'll meet her. But I was just so cool that she was like, hey, I just want to come in and say thanks and meet you, and it's like, wow, cool.
That is cool. That's good mom skills.
yeah, and totally just shows that she's a really cool person.
Yeah.
There are people in the studio like Greg Calby works with Branford Marsalis, and I've never worked with him, but every time he's in the studio, he comes in my room, we talk, 10, 15 minutes just to say, hey, what's up? How's life? Steve Jordan, the drummer, I don't work with him. He works with Greg, but every time he's in, he comes in, same thing. We BS, we talk. Last year during the World Cup, Noel Gallagher was in, and he was there for a couple days, and he came in my lounge every afternoon, and we would all stop to watch a game. And literally, Noel Gallagher was yelling at the TV with us. It was just like, okay, there's nothing cooler than this. Like even though I know a lot of big artists, and you get all these privileges by knowing them. You go places, you go backstage, you go to parties. It's great, but just like watching soccer with them, like in the middle of the day, that's the coolest part.
You get to see them as humans again.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. People say, who's the nicest, who's the worst, and it's like, you're making a record, like everybody, it's like having a baby. Like you could be the nicest person in the world and want to kill somebody during birth. So, there are people who go through birth like, yeah, man, the epidural's really working good and I'm fine. And then there are people who are like, I don't want anything, push, and they're like, and the baby comes out and they're like, okay, we're gonna resequence this baby and we're gonna remix 3 songs on this baby, and you just deal with it, it's...
I don't think people understand the emotional undertaking of putting out a record. It is writing and creating the baby.
Yeah.
Is a very intense emotional process, and it takes a lot of time. And then, of course, by the time it comes out, you've already written, another 30 songs. You're like, damn.
People don't realize, too, that, like, what... all what engineers do and guys who work in the studio and do all this stuff is that they are part of the creative palette. Like, the person who writes it all, the artist who does everything, the producers, they are using us to kind of like, get that one thing that they want, for the record. And it's very like specific and, sometimes it's a lot of pressure, working with big artists, I guess it was almost a year ago, or I guess it was in September. I'm sitting in the studio for a weekend with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis and doing the new Janet Jackson album. And, those guys picked me to do it. And it's like, how friggin' cool is that?
So cool.
Like Jam and Lewis want me. All right. It's
because
cool.
You're awesome, man.
I mean, it's just great that they respect my craft and, they know what I can do and they like it.
It's incredible. It's so incredible. Yeah. It's wonderful and well-deserved, clearly. Who do you, if you were making a record and you didn't exist, like if you weren't you, and you're making a record and you're an artist, do you have a mastering person that you kind of, is your idol in mastering? I know you're probably supposed to say somebody that's in your office, but let's just throw that out with
No, so like when I was young, like Bob Ludwig is, he's one of the legends in the industry.
Of course.
Bob, one time he asked me to be on a panel at AES, and I sat next to him, and, like we were talking, and it was like, almost every record I liked growing up, he mastered, and then I used to, George Marino, who passed away a couple years ago, all this rock stuff that he did, and, to like meet these guys. And now, like, Greg Calby, I told my daughter the other day, we were eating somewhere, and Psychedelic Furs, Ghost in You is on. And I was like,
that is such a good record.
So it's such an amazing record, and I just blurted out to my daughter, Greg Calby, who I work with, he mastered this record. My daughter was like, that's so random, but I was just like I was so excited that, like, I remember looking at that record one day and being like, this guy mastered this. I want to meet him one day. And, I sat in his studio today having a half-hour conversation with him about business this morning, and I didn't think twice about it, Like,
right.
He's a legend to me, and now we talk about, like, work,
I think that's such a beautiful thing, that these people that you looked up to are now your peers, your equals. That's great.
Yeah. I guess it's cool. It's weird in a way, too, like, when I meet, like, if I go to AES or I go to something and I meet, like, guys who are, young mastering engineers, like, oh, my God, I'm a big fan of your work. And it's like, that's such a, like, hard thing to, like, like my work. What record are you talking about? Because there's a lot of stuff I did that I listen to now, and I'm like, what was I doing? Where was I?
How do you mean? What do you mean?
I guess just like I'm kind of like progressive in sound. Like I think sound right now is the best it's ever been. Like there are people who are like, oh, vinyl back in the day, that was the best, or tape machines and whatever. And I'm like, I don't know. I just keep moving forward. I just love where sound is going. I think like people are really getting into like good sound. Like headphones are amazing. Home systems are amazing again. Like the whole Sonos thing is really amazing. Like you can just put speakers everywhere and they sound good. Like I'm really getting into that again. Like people enjoying like sound and not just like, some crappy speaker playing in your living room.
Do you have an insane sound system at your house?
It's not bad. It's not bad. So B&W gave me some speakers for being part of their thing, and they're pretty nice. I don't have a super powerful amp, but I have like those, and I have Sonos, and I have like some other stuff. I just have speakers.
Yeah.
Like it's really for like the B&Ws are for listening to music. I'm taking a turntable home like next week. Set up my turntable here.
Nice.
I have a bunch of records and stuff. So yeah, I want there to be times like Sunday afternoons when I'm like vacuuming, cleaning, like just put on like a Flock of Seagulls album.
Yeah.
Something totally random, like a Brian Eno album or the Kinks.
Oh, it's so good.
But you're saying just like all this random stuff that I have, like I have all this Clash special vinyl and Police special vinyl and U2 special vinyl. Just like to play, it's like one song came out on that and that's it, And like that's the original mastering. That's the way it was supposed to sound. That's the thing about the old vinyl, like that. If you have it, like that was the CD of its time, or the high definition wave file. That was it back then. Like the original mastering was like done, shipped to the factory. Everybody approved it, and that was the gig. Like over time, people started cutting off of like EQ'd masters, and the quality went down a little. But, if you have, like, real old original vinyl, like, that's the shit for that time. Like,
yeah, I went record shopping with my friend James Haggerty, and he pointed out to me how to tell if it's original master recording. Because I never thought to look for stuff like that. He's like, oh, you gotta look for this. And
the scribe on the inner diameter.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to write stuff on the inner diameter when we cut vinyl. Bands would ask us to write messages, or I would just write stuff. Like if I knew the band was cool, I would just write something silly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to come to Nashville and check out Third Man Records and come to the United Record Pressing and...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, come visit.
I know. You know what? I actually...
Not that you ever get free time, but...
I don't really get free time, but right now I'm kind of like just doing this thing where like I'm going to make free time for myself and go explore.
Yeah.
And, I was thinking about like I kind of wanted to go to Vegas, and then I was like, just go to Vegas and like spa, like stay in a really nice room and go like, like go to the gym and work out, and then go get like a massage, and then like sit in a salt bath and a lava, whatever, mud, and do that for like a weekend and just kind of like unplug. Like not look at my phone, not do anything. I don't gamble, like I don't get it, but like I know if I go to Vegas, they have all that shit in one place, so I could do that.
They have those cool spots in Arizona and stuff too.
Yeah, I thought about that. Go to Arizona. One of my best friends growing up used to work at the Enchantment Spa, which is considered like the best. He doesn't work there anymore, too bad. But like, yeah, I was thinking about that. But like Vegas, I fly in, I take a car to the air. It's like right there,
yeah.
And I could eat really crappy too.
They have really good. I've been to Vegas one time, and the one thing, if you do go to Vegas, you have to go see a Cirque du Soleil. It is a thing to behold. Of course, now there's about 6 different Cirque du Soleil shows, but pick any of them. It doesn't matter. It is a true thing to behold. It's unbelievably beautiful to watch and to hear.
Yeah, like go see a show, something like that.
Yeah.
That, or I kind of want to go to London to see a soccer game, and it's just logistically, with, my life, my kids' lives, all this stuff going on. It's just, it's hard.
But you know what? Life just does what it does, whether you're in it or not. You can step out of it for a minute and then step back in again.
Today, part of my conversation with my partners was I'm going to go to, like, China to, like, develop more, a better base there with clientele and stuff. The country's completely opening up, and they have, millions of people who will buy millions of records, and there's millions of people making records. So, it's just tapping into that business. I have a pretty good Japanese base, too. I'm thinking about going to Japan, go to Tokyo. I've never been there. It's like one of my dream cities to go to. I love the culture. I love the food. I know so many artists there that like are mega artists. I just did probably like 5 albums, a triple album and a double album for this band called Dreams Come True. And they're one of the biggest bands ever in Japan. I've been working on their stuff for years and years. And, they're like, oh, come to Tokyo and we'll take you out. And I'd be like, okay, that's the way to go to Tokyo with like one of the biggest Japanese bands ever and just go hang out with them.
Oh, my God, you have to do it.
Yeah, so, it's things like
that.
If
you need someone to carry your suitcases, I will do that.
Yeah.
I'll dress like an anime. It'll be great.
All right, you just got the job.
Yes. I'll put on my 5-inch heels, put on the platinum wig. It'll be a good thing.
All right. Well, if I come to Nashville, will you do that? Yeah. Just go out and you'll be dressed like that. Terrorize the downtown. Yeah. That'd be funny.
Oh my goodness. Chris, you're the bestest.
Yeah, you're cool. Thank you.
Thank you for... Is there any other stories before we sign off that you want to...
No, it's just,
You're kind of bound by confidentiality, so I can't really dig into you because I know that, which is good, and you have to respect that boundary for sure. But I bet you got some good stories.
Oh, yeah. Fights, guns, drugs, girlfriends, boyfriends. It's all there.
And that was just Dennis Rodman. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Literally. Yeah, I mean, I've met, amazing people. I've met people, like actors and actresses, rock stars, nobodies, and they're all cool people. It's sitting in the room for a day, just talking to somebody, finding out, like I kind of do my thing and I just want to know about them. I'm like, I just want to know what makes them tick. I want to know what the songs are about. That's the coolest part. Is like when you're with an artist and you're like, what's the song about? And they tell you, and then it becomes like a #1 song, and people are like, oh my God, I love the song. Like you have no idea, like you have no idea what it's about. And it's amazing to like know, like to,
all the stories.
Yeah.
Do you think you have to wait for everyone to die before you can write a book?
Yeah, I don't know. Everybody always says you should write a book one day. It's just like it would just be cool because it, like from my point of view of the way everybody is and the way they, like my room is like the birthing room.
Yeah.
So like it's almost like a story of like how they're like, you know, like when it happens, they're kind of like they go to this different place. You know, they're creative, and all of a sudden they have to go like show everybody the baby and do all this other stuff, and it's just like a weird. They kind of go through this portal in my room, you know.
I do know. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I have to ask you. I'm going to put you on the spot. Have you painted anything yet?
I painted when I was in California. I went to a wine and painting thing with with Beth's family.
Yeah.
And she just recently bought me a sketch pad, and I've kind of been dabbling in
Okay, don't forget you have that box of paints.
It's right across the room.
And I can't wait till you start painting something.
I know. I just like I'm drawing now to get into my next thing. You know what my problem is? I'm really into photography, and I actually just bought a Leica camera on Saturday.
Sweet.
So this is like my dream camera, and actually tonight there's a giant water fountain in my apartment complex in this, you know, center quad, and I just walked over at the camera and just was like, all right, I just want to test out ISO settings and, you know, bracketing and doing all this stuff to see how the camera works in dark, and I just took like probably 50 pictures of this water fountain with different filters and different time lapses and all this cool stuff, and I was, you know, like, all right, you know, like this camera's inspiring me to like go somewhere and take pictures.
Amazing. Well, bring it to Japan.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of thing. Whenever I go somewhere, I always have a camera on me, and I'm trying to like just do this stuff. You know? Just document.
That's amazing. Yay. Well, I love you dearly, sir.
I love you too. Thank you.
I'm so glad that you were able to talk to me a little bit and kind of break away from work and all that stuff. So come visit. Come say hello to Nashville.
I really think I need to just go to Nashville, because everything else is like, you know, hours and hours flights, and you know.
Yeah, we're pretty close to New York. It's not.
Ted just told me the Hutton.
Yes.
Yeah, is that the spot?
That's a very nice hotel. Yes, it's beautiful. Right. Yeah, it's so is Union Station is quite beautiful as well, but they're doing a big renovation, so I doubt it would be done in time. But the Hutton is great. They have a lovely martini and a delicious. You're a meat eater, aren't you? They're considered to have one of the best burgers in Nashville. So
really,
yeah.
Yeah, I'm afraid of going to Nashville though, because I've been like dieting and exercising since May.
You look great.
I lost 25 pounds. I'm like getting in shape. I'm like hitting the gym real hard, and I just like tonight I came home and had some steamed vegetables. You know, like I'm like, all right, I'm doing this.
You got to get your proteins, man. Get your protein in.
I'm totally keto.
Yeah.
Actually, I had some slab bacon with that. Ketogenic is like Atkins diet, but a little more hardcore.
Oh. Yeah, what is hardcore mean? You just walk up to the cow and bite into it, right?
There's no sugars, no processed food, no nothing. It's all like, you know, salads and meats and, you know, whatever. Yeah. Every now and then some cheese. I'm not really supposed to, but, you know, it's okay. So
what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I'm losing weight and I'm feeling good.
You look great. You look fantastic. So good for you. Love you.
Love you. I'll let you know if I'm going to come to Nashville. I'm ready to really get
Thanks for being on Hey Human.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye.